Hello, welcome to an easy way to get better at drawing people. You might not believe it, but drawing trees helps a lot with drawing people. Trees have gesture, perspective, and simple anatomy without the complications of the human figure. So for gesture, human gesture indicates like an emotion, sadness, or maybe excitement. There's a lot more nuanced emotions that you have to worry about, but with trees, basically their wants is just to see the sun. They want to like kind of arrange their trunks in the best way they can get the sun, and that leads to some really interesting shapes. Limb attachment is another cool thing that you can learn from drawing trees. When you draw people, the bones are locked into place by muscle, and there's like different types of muscle, so it's pretty complicated. But with trees are just like a bunch of circles stacked on each other, so it's a lot easier to learn. And to make it even more complicated, when you draw a human perspective, you kind of have to create a box around the body, and then these boxes have corners, and I find that those shapes are the hardest to draw in perspective. But trees are kind of like a simple tube construction that can be indicated with circles, which is easier to learn at first before boxes. You can see here I'm drawing a limb going towards us and a limb going away from us, and all I have to do is change the direction of the circle in order to indicate the direction it's going, and it's always important to draw through the circle. And here's our first example of tree drawing. I'm trying to find the eye level of the tree by drawing perspective lines back in space, and kind of where those lines become horizontal is where the horizon/eye level line is. And then I get into drawing the tree. You could do it at first with the line. I decided to block it out as a 2D shape, paying attention to where the negative spaces were between the branches. And now that we've drawn it in 2D, we want to kind of think about it in 3 dimensions. Here I am drawing where the eye level is, and you can see how the circles I'm drawing around the tree trunk, for the main trunk, they curve upwards above the line, like a frowny face, and they curve downwards below the eye level, like a smiley face. That's on purpose because our eye level affects how we see the form of the tree. It may be helpful to think in terms of, are you looking up at the tree? And then as you look at the base of the tree, do you begin to look down at the tree? It's harder to explain from a photo, but when you look at a tree in person, you would understand. For the branches separating from the main trunk, I'm mainly trying to pay attention to what way they're oriented in space. Are they coming towards us, or are they moving away from us? And depending on which direction, I'll draw the circle differently, or on the tree trunk differently. Now I'm trying to clarify the overlaps of the limbs of the tree, which helps better convey how the limbs are moving in space. Next, I'm adding shadow to the tree to show even more form. I'm just following it from the reference image, but I'm being really careful when I draw the shadow on the tree to follow the form of the tree in space. So to go over it step by step, 1, we want to draw the gesture of the tree in 2D. 2, we want to build the form with perspective, like build the tree out in 3D. Then we want to clarify which forms are in front with overlapping lines. And then drawing shadows is optional to show additional form. Here are 2 examples of the shadow or highlight flattening the form. In the first, I draw the shadow flat across the tree, which doesn't make sense because the tree is cylindrical, so it flattens the form. And then secondly, I draw the highlight/shadow in the opposite direction of the circle. So instead of a frowny face, I kind of draw it in a smiley face direction. That kind of goes against the form of the tree. And I totally forgot this at first, but the first step is, before everything else, is just to identify the eye level/horizon line of what you're drawing. Okay, and now we're gonna move on to the second example, a bonsai tree. And first I'm drawing the gesture of the tree. I start off with a line because this gesture is a little complicated and I want to make sure I capture it correctly. And then I'm observing the negative spaces in the tree to correct the 2D drawing of the tree that I have. And then I start to add a little overlap. I think I'm just getting a little ahead of myself. Then I am adding I'm drawing through the shape of the tree to add 3D form, making sure to show how the tree is moving away from us and towards us. It's a little harder with this one. But the shadow shapes help kind of indicate also how the circle of the tree is, and it gets a little boxy actually where the shadows are, so that might make it a little harder to draw than the first tree. Then I'm working on correcting the overlapping forms, and then getting inspired by this tree and the shadow shapes, I kind of think it looks like a person, so I'm gonna draw a person on the side, and following the smiley face and frowny face lines the circular lines on the tree, I add them to the person. And then it's kind of cool because the person is the same exact like planes as the tree. The shadow shapes are the same. And so for our third and last example, this tree is probably the most complicated and largest compared to the other trees. I start off drawing the gesture of the tree, kind of having the main trunk as a 2D shape and then the branches as gesture lines, so I can keep them fluid in case I get it wrong. And then I outline the negative shapes to help me kind of see which branches I want to focus on, because I'm not drawing all those tiny branches in the back. And then I lower the opacity and I decide to simplify what I see in front of me. And I remember to draw through the limbs, so even though there are tree branches crossing in front of each other, I still want to draw the tree branches that I can't see that are behind one another. And I think I have enough limbs here, so I've just decided I'm calling it right there. And this is actually pretty important. I forgot to mention this for the previous examples, but don't forget to cap your limbs in perspective. It kind of helps you define where the end of the tree is, and it doesn't necessarily end like that in real life, but in your drawing, you should end it so it's definitive. And this helps when you draw a human figure, because basically, let's say I'm drawing the wrist, I need to cap it in order to add the hand to it, and that helps indicate like the direction it's going, and it helps you be decisive about the direction it's going. So I drew my circles around the tree to indicate where the tree branches are going in perspective, and now I'm tidying up the drawing and adding overlaps to help indicate form even more. And I'm adding shadows, kind of. It's a cloudy day in the reference photo, so I kind of have to embellish it just a little bit. And I'm using the gradient tool here, but in real life, if you're doing this traditionally, you can just fade the cross hatching out. And I like that branch on the left because it reminds me of a knee, and I'm just gonna draw a knee on the left hand side to show how the tree branch is just like a human limb. And then, inspired by the direction of the tree trunk, I'm drawing a human body with like an arm kind of shooting up like the tree branch. And the fingers too are kind of like tubes that I add to the box of the hand. So I hope that helps. That's kind of how you draw the human figure inspired by trees. And so homework. You don't have to do this, but I think it helps just to do like an action item after you learn something. So I recommend drawing 20 trees, and I recommend drawing outside because there are some things that are really hard to see in a photo. Going outside, you can actually self-correct by walking around the real tree. So hope that helps you tremendously. Thanks for watching, and let me know if you have any other suggestions for videos you want to see. So I'm kind of struggling to figure out if I want to do more lifestyle sketchbook videos or digital drawing art tutorials. Let me know which one you prefer, and if you liked it, please subscribe. Thanks!